Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Thursday, August 31st. We are here live. We're here for an hour today. This morning, it's a free-for-all for an hour. I shouldn't say we're here for an hour. It's a free-for-all for the first hour. Phone lines are open right now. I've got a topic I'll throw out here. Not really a lot to say about it, but I'll throw it out. We'll see if there's any interest in that. But you can talk about anything you want. So pick up the phone and join me, 855-950-3835. After the first hour, we'll switch on over to Rolling Toe with Mike and Kevin Beckett for an hour. They'll answer all of your questions about tires, alignment, handling, suspension, vibrations. They love vibration calls. You guys should really hit them up with some more of those tough vibration calls. They love that stuff. That's what they eat for breakfast. After they're done, roughly an hour or so, we will head on over to a Twitter space and just going to continue what we were talking about here on the live show. So jump in and join me. The topic I'm going to throw out today, the latest hysteria from the owner-operator small carrier world on social media seems to be all about data. Interesting enough, I've been talking about data for years. How many times have you heard me say you have to understand historical rates in lanes, you have to understand seasonal rates in lanes, you have to understand how the current environment is affecting rates and lanes. Produce season has an impact. Almost everything that happens in trucking has an impact on the rates, and they change constantly. It is difficult to understand rates in trucking. There's no doubt about it. It's hard work. Most owner-operators and small carriers never bother. And if you don't need to and you're doing okay, fine. I've always encouraged it. I think understanding this just helps you understand the business overall. The issue now, all of a sudden, from the groups that have almost never accessed this data. And, by the way, I have the data to show that these groups don't access the data. It seems to be that they're referencing data from three companies, FreightWaves, TruckStop, and DAT. I have seen data about the data from two of those companies, TruckStop and DAT. I don't really know the numbers in the background from FreightWaves. What I have looked at, remember, these are, when you go on the load board, like many things you do online, your activity is tracked. Both TruckStop and DAT track what you do. And they don't do it to spy on you. They do it to understand what data their customers use, how the customers interact with their software and their platform so that they can make it better. I promise you that's why they do it. They don't do it because they just want to spy on you. And what you can find in that data, I've talked about it many times. The typical owner-operator, 95+% of the time, only uses the load board to search for and find a load. That's it. You can go in and look. That's what they're clicking on. And then they're gone. And then they come back and they do it again. And we've talked about how they search for a load. They sort it by rate. That's how we started to understand that idea of chasing the rate. We can also see which load they may have selected, so we know which brokers they're working with. That was how we identified the one and done phenomenon. I've been talking about these things for years. And then I'll say, when we look in there, they are not accessing the historical data, sometimes never, very, very seldom. So the people that complain about the data seem to be the ones that don't use the data and don't understand how the data was collected. That's a big part of the problem. I made one post on Monday, and there's probably been, not exaggerating, probably 50 posts about that. I haven't responded at all. I have a new method on this. I kind of like it. I just post an issue and then sit back and just watch. I don't reply to anybody's replies anymore. I don't mean ever or on every post, but in general, when it's one of these posts, about rates or brokers or the hot button issues, I just kind of post and then sit back and watch, and then I'll report on what's happening, which is kind of what's going on here. Honestly, I am to the point, I read these posts that they're making about this data, and the more I read, the more I'm confused. I have no idea what they're talking about anymore or what their real problem is. It seems to me that they're complaining that the data isn't the real rates. I don't really understand what they're trying to say. So we can talk about that. I posted a couple things. First off, the data is useful if you understand how it was gathered and how to use it. Is it perfect? No, not even close. We know that. I've talked about the problems and the anomalies in data. But once you understand what they are and where they are, and the data is still very usable if you understand how. The biggest issue, though, here is they're complaining about all this data as though it's all fraud and it's designed to, hurt the owner-operator and small carrier somehow, but I'm not really sure how. Here's the big issue. These are 3 private companies. They can produce whatever data they feel like producing. If you don't like that data, go somewhere else. Go find the data somewhere else. How about trying to create the data and find out whether or not you could ever do it accurately and how expensive it is to create this kind of data? I don't understand what they're complaining about. It's like complaining all the time that McDonald's hamburgers suck and continuing to go to McDonald's. What's your problem? Go get a burger somewhere else. If you don't like what private companies do, don't interact with them. That's what a free market is all about. I swear when I read these, I think what they're pushing for is probably some sort of government regulation about data. Anyway, let's get to your calls. Did I have another point about? Well, I may come back to it. I'm going to get to your calls, find out what's on your mind today, because maybe you're not interested in this topic at all. We'll see. Let's go to Illinois. Jerry, welcome to the program.
Well, good morning, Kevin. I got 2 things I want to follow up with. On yesterday, I called and talked to Trina about a detox kit, and I want to let you know that I did, in fact, get busy and get 2 of them ordered and sent to my granddaughter who's in dental school. So we'll see what happens with her.
I love that idea.
I texted her, want to know. Well, I texted her and asked her if she was open-minded, and I think she is. I really do.
Good.
So hopefully we'll get some results back from her.
You know what would be really interesting? It's entirely possible that this one move on your part, this one thing you reached out and did, could change her entire career and life. And that might sound like a really big statement, but it's not an exaggeration. At some point, everybody in the medical field is either going to go down the big pharma, big medical model, or they might just find their way to this holistic, functional, in dentistry, for some reason we call them biologic dentists. And that is a big, big difference. So you may have been, the catalyst to just steer her over to an entirely different career and life. And then let's think about that for a second. In her career, how many patients is she going to deal with? Thousands.
Well, I hope a bunch. I hope.
Thousands.
Yeah, I hope so anyway.
Now, one little thing that you did could affect thousands of people. They're either going to be damaged by our big dental system, or they're actually going to be helped by the biological functional dental system, and you may have changed that.
Well, I think you're way too optimistic, but I give you credit for being optimistic. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But she's just starting her career, so she's kind of going to be, she's got 3 more years of school, so she'll be influenced by them for quite a while yet. So.
Right, but let's think about this. Had she gone through the 3 years of school and then you reached out to her, That's very different from reaching out to her now,
Well,
letting her know there's another way, and she can kind of, maybe, if she does, she would be able to benchmark against what she's learning. And if we had enough doctors or dentists doing that, they would probably revolt based on how much they pay for this education and how bad it is.
yeah, probably so. So, all right, that was one follow through. And the other thing is I guess we've chatted enough to know that I tend to have a rather obsessive personality and probably to a mental deficiency. Even I get obsessed with something and I got to get. So I want to follow through on my Monday call. And here's what I want to know from you. And there's a reason I want to know it. When you look at oil samples, what are the top 3 or 4 brands of oil you see on oil samples? I'm assuming Shell Rotella T would be probably be at the top of the list. What are the other 2 or 3 that you see very common?
You know, they're the big brands. They're the big, and it just makes sense. They're everywhere. They're on the shelf. People who don't think about oil, care about oil, will just grab a bottle. And honestly, I have to say, there's nothing wrong with just grabbing a bottle of oil. As much as I've talked about this for years, as much as I would love to say, this oil is so much better than that oil, and here's why. I just can't. I can make a couple comments. Rotella, we've talked about, has a lot of zinc. Zinc is protective. It's got all the same stuff everybody else has, and then it's got some extra zinc. And so much so, John Walco has told us it's a diesel oil, and they use it in race cars because they just like that formulation so much with the extra zinc. Other than that, oil's oil. Honestly, I hate to say that.
So I've never bought a jug off the shelf for probably years and years. So Shell and what's the other, Dello?
Dello is probably...
Delvac, what?
Number 2, but look, and I'm not, this isn't any kind of scientific, I haven't, crunched the numbers, but from, just memory, what do I tend to see more? It is just the 2 or 3 big name brands that you always see. You're right, Dello, Rotella. Look on the truck stop shelf at what's sitting there, and those are the oils I'm going to see most of in oil samples.
All right. Well, here's the reason I want to get them, and I'm going to see. I told you I get obsessed, and I'm going to take some brand new oil, and I'm going to send some in I'm going to get some sample bottles from you, and I'm going to send about 3 or 4 top oils in. And this is a follow up on our call Monday. I am informed way beyond my intelligence, but after our call on Monday, I think on Tuesday morning, I had a long visit with my oil blender, the chemist at my oil blender, Central Petroleum Company, Senpico, and I had a long visit with him about this silicon issue.
Goes back there the whole time.
Anyway, I had a long visit with him, and he's very, very knowledgeable. So, but he talked way beyond my intelligence. Silicon is added as a foam inhibitor.
Right.
Thank you. Sorry, Kevin, I didn't get my paperwork. Anyway, right. And the whole science behind it is that the silicon molecule is a heavy molecule, and as you start to form a bubble, the heavy molecule of silicon attaches and cracks the shell of the bubble, and that's how it performs as a foam inhibitor. However, the oil testers, no lab can differentiate between silicon as an additive and silicon as a contaminant. So you have to, in order to read an oil sample, you really need to know what the base oil has as far as silicon. As I indicated on Monday, mine has 10 parts per million.
Hold on. Let me address that.
Okay.
Because I would push back on that topic. And here's why. I've been reviewing oil samples since 1995. I've done a lot of them in that time. I almost hate to admit this because I do know a lot about oil samples. I've taken classes on it. I didn't know this was even an issue. I didn't know they added silicon as an anti-foam agent. And one of my questions would be, do all oils, and at what levels, or is there some other additive that can be used for this? But here's why here's why I would push back on the fact that you need to know this. I didn't know this for all these years, but yet that number of silicon has been very, very useful, even though I didn't know this. Anytime it's over 10, we start to see excess wear metals. Anytime it's under 10, we don't see those buildup of wear metals as much. This is all nuanced, But that's worked really well for us. When somebody goes over 10, we tell them, hey, there's a problem. You're getting excess dirt in the engine, and we need to figure out why and fix it. And then they usually find the problem, they fix it, the number comes down, and the wear metals go away. So I haven't known this data all these years. I didn't even know it was an issue, and we still handle this silicon thing fine without knowing that.
Well, but he addressed that, and here's what I'm getting at. I asked him that very question, kind of, sort of. Yes, you have to look at the other wear metals because dirt or the Earth's crust is made up of, what do you say, 6 parts silicon and 1 part aluminum. So if you start to see other wear metals increase, it probably is dirt. And not all the oils have the same amount of silicon. There are other compounds that some companies.
That's what I figured, right?
Right, but like I asked him off the top of my head what like the popular brand of Shell Rotella tea would have in their oil, and I don't know. He said some maybe 5 or 6. He didn't know for sure. So anyway, that's what I'm getting at. So that's why I want to send some samples in and test.
Well, let me go back and cover what you said. You have kind of an obsessive personality, and you're curious and you want to know. I love that. I talk about Bruce being the most curious person I've ever met. He asks everybody everything. But that's also how he learns and how he improves things. So I would never discourage you from doing this. But I would say on this issue, it's kind of a non-issue. We get the results we need with the data we already have and understand. We help people make sure they don't have excess dirt in their engine. That's the outcome. That's what I'm shooting for here. And for 20 or 30 plus years, however long I've been doing this, it's worked.
But now that I've started on, I've got to know, Kevin.
Yeah,
exactly.
Got to know. Keep going. Here's something interesting, because I didn't know this. I was wondering, I had a feeling I was right, but I wasn't sure. Silicon dioxide, also known as silica. When I hear silica, I think of sand, and that would make sense, but what silica really is, silica is the major constituent in quartz. So this is why this is so damaging. We're really not talking about dirt like we think of dirt, like you go out and grab a handful of dirt. When you get it wet, it becomes mud. We're talking about more like the parts of sand, that it doesn't dissolve like dirt does in water. It's made up of very, very tiny pieces of hard rock and quartz. I mean, that's how we get sand on a beach. It was a rocky shore, but after 1 billion years of all that friction, it's broken down into sand. What do we use sand for? To make sandpaper, to cut things. So that's really what we're talking about when we say dirt. We're talking about silica, or sand and quartz and rock that's in really tiny little pieces. Does that make more sense now?
Sure it does. So, and that's what I told you. When I first got on this issue, and you probably don't remember it, but I told you to go out in your garden and pick up a handful of dirt in one hand and squirt a bunch of silicon gasket sealer in the other, and tell me how come they're the same and they're analyzed the same on an oil sample, because I could never get it through my thick skull as to how dirt and silicon gasket sealer both showed up under silicon on an oil report.
I always thought it was a little weird too. I never understood why. We just understood that it happens. And again, that was enough. Sometimes enough knowledge is enough knowledge. And that was enough knowledge for me to be able to say, one of my first questions when I see high silicon is always, has the engine been opened up, right? I say it just about every time, because if it has been, we will kind of ignore that high number, knowing that it was caused by that process. Right.
But back to the silicon, if you looked at my oil, if you looked at somebody's oil sample and they had, let's say, 5 parts of silicon, you'd say that's absolutely no problem. Don't worry about that at all. If you looked at my oil sample and it had 15 parts per million of silicon, you would say, holy cow, you better check your air cleaner and everything. However, with me starting out at 10 parts per million in my oil, I'm only at 5 parts per million, so we're both at the same level, and one's worrisome and one's not.
That's never shown up yet, and let me maybe try to figure out why not. You mentioned a brand of oil that, with all the research I've ever done, I've never even heard of.
And that's fine. It's a smaller company. But what was the brand of oil that Jackie sent that sample in? What brand of oil was that?
I don't
remember. You remember offhand? Remember, that's what started the whole conversation.
If we really thought this was an issue, and I don't, because I've never had a problem diagnosing this issue and fixing it in all these years. But if I thought there was some issue out there, what I would have to do is go get the oils and find out which one uses silicon as an additive and how much. But I just, like I said, don't see it as a problem. We get the results we hope to get. We fix the problems. This might be some weird one-off thing that this brand of oil does. I don't know.
Well, I don't either, but Jackie, the one that Jackie sent in on Monday had 10 parts per million, so it's not a one-off is what I'm trying to say.
Then let me ask something else that I don't know but has to be addressed. If these oils start with 10, how can I see trucks with that brand of oil at 4? Is there silicon being consumed somehow? And how?
No,
if
it's not being consumed, 10, but how do you know?
How do I get to 4?
Because it didn't start out with not all of them start out with 10.
No, I understand that, but there are oils you're telling me now have 10, and I will tell you, I've looked at samples with that oil, and it's been lower than 10.
Okay, but have you ever looked at an oil sample of Sempico oil and
I've never
analyzed it? Have you ever looked at a sample with the brand of oil that Jackie?
As far as I know, I've never looked at a sample with Sempico, unless I've looked at yours and I didn't even know what brand I was looking at.
Well,
here's the thing again. Hold on, Jerry. Let me just cut to the chase.
All right.
I am very, very happy with the results we've been getting around silicon in truck engines for almost 30 years now. It sounds to me like if I were going to try to figure this out, it's going to take me, I would just estimate 4 to 6 hours of research time, maybe longer, to go try to find all these formulations for all these oils. Sometimes you can't find them. These companies don't give up their recipes. And so here's the thing.
See, I asked that.
If you want to go do this research and report back to me, I would love that. I'm not doing it.
Well, I asked that exact same question to my oil blender. I said, look, is there somewhere I can order the analysis of every brand of oil? And he said that there was a company in Michigan some time ago called Centron or something like that. But it was an extremely expensive. Well, they were an extremely expensive subscription and even a one-off sample report. And I said, well, hell, for $50 you could send a sample into a lab and have it analyzed. He laughed and said, yeah, that'd be a lot cheaper. So,
well, yes, except you've got to do it for every brand of oil.
Well, I don't care about every brand. I just want to get the top few. So, it's not going to cost me that much to
go do it and report back to us.
I will do that.
I love it. Thank you.
I plan on it. So,
all right.
Yeah, just research is king. Thanks, Kevin. Didn't mean to get so deep into it, but it's way beyond my intelligence.
I love getting deep into stuff. I'd rather do that than just skim the surface all the time. Let's go to Maryland. Jeremy, welcome to the program.
Hey, Tim. Hey, Kevin. Can you hear me?
I can. You're a little quiet. Speak up.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
We're debt-free.
Oh, hey. Now I hear what's going on. Awesome. Congratulations. But you called the wrong show. That's Dave Ramsey that does that.
Yeah, it's true. But, with all your...
Congratulations. That is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and
we learned.
And let me say this.
Old mistakes and learn.
Based on everything going on in the world, your timing couldn't have been better.
Yeah, I hear that too. Yeah, we're thinking about that too. We've been investing in as well.
So
later in life.
Let's do something for a second. You don't have to give the numbers right now, but take a look back and figure out when your debt peaked, and then when you started to pay it down, and how much you were able to pay down in a year, because that should be the minimum number that now gets invested or saved.
Okay, Tammy's good. She'll listen. She'll listen to replay and
Okay, good.
what you say. I'm trying to. But yeah.
Well,
yeah,
here, let me
appreciate
just
that.
explain it really quick.
We're trying to catch up too. We pretty much maxed out our things.
Yeah, so you guys were living and paying the bills, and then on top of that, you were taking money to pay down debt. So what that tells us is that's the excess money that you have after paying bills, at least that much. That's why I say this is a minimum. So that tells you, hey, if we want to continue this trend, we just did this awesome thing. We don't want to stop now. This is the minimum amount we should be saving every month. Because it's available now.
Gotcha.
You're not using it to pay off debt anymore. Now you can use that excess money to start creating savings and investments.
Yes, right, of course. And so we're just gonna boost up what we've already been doing too as well. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not gonna. But what was I getting at? I was also gonna say I had a good week with. I wanted to touch on that. We didn't sound like we had credit card debt, but yeah, we paid off our home. We paid off our home.
That's really awesome. Right. I love that.
Yeah.
One of the statistics I'd love to go look up. I've never seen this published anywhere that I recall. How many Americans actually pay off a home in their lifetime? I'll bet there are a lot that never do. I mean, I know people in their 50s and 60s that were refinancing homes. And then if you think about that, it's a little crazy when a 60-year-old takes a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah, a lot of people say, because a lot of people have sold their home they were in, and then they got into another one and put the big down payment, and maybe they're going to finish up or something like that, right?
It would be interesting to know how many Americans never fully pay off a mortgage in their lifetime. I'll bet it's a pretty big number.
Yeah, we definitely learned from our previous life and mistakes. We each had lost a home or let a house go in our past. And so we learned a little bit of the hard way, but
there's a huge example of what education does. At one point, you didn't have the knowledge and the education and sometimes the discipline. I get that when we're younger. A lot of us went through that. I certainly did. Yeah. But you went from losing a home. That's a big, big deal. That's life-altering.
Yeah.
You went from that to completely paying off a home. That's awesome.
Yeah. When we look back at where it was, too, and how it increased, we kick ourselves. But
so let's
we can't look back.
Let's say this. It starts with education and then ends with the hard work. It's one thing to be educated, know how to do the right stuff. It's another to have the discipline to do the right stuff. And it takes both. You need to be educated. You have to understand what you're trying to accomplish here and how to do it. And then you have to have the discipline to do the hard work to get it done. And you two have proven you got both.
All right. Yeah, and that's right. I was going to say. And we had it easy because, we were driving some a company's truck that we had found our home at for now, and then we have a set type thing going on. So
I love the fact
that we had it easy.
Well, I love the fact that you say you had it easy, but I don't see that as being easy. I mean,
we're not really like running a business. Is what I meant.
So I get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying, but I could also turn that around. I think it was easy for me to pay off a mortgage because I owned a business and I could just work as much as I wanted to and generate more revenue or work smarter. And so I feel like it was easier for me with a business because it gave me so many options. I mean, you basically had a fixed income. There wasn't much you could do to increase your income. You couldn't cut costs, not in the business. You drive so many miles, you get paid so much money. That's what you've got to work with.
Yeah, well, and things just went right. And I don't know. Sometimes we were wondering, did they mess up for the past year in our payroll? But anyway, and so I've had a great week. My son finished his pilot school, so he's a pilot with a SkyWest, which is like a Delta
Congratulations,
type thing. So,
I've flown on SkyWest in the past. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's in Salt Lake right now, but I mean, it's a very proud moment for me. So that was awesome.
Let me ask you something.
And,
I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about this in the past, but aren't you a little shocked at what he's going to get paid his first year for flying a plane?
Yeah, I asked my mom that, and because he was staying in California with her to train, and she said, just under 100. And I was like, he's getting kind of the same as we are.
Yeah, but wait a minute, that's gone way up in the last probably 5 years. Yeah, there was a time I reported, and this was a statistic I read somewhere, the average first-year commercial pilot coming out and starting in the smallest planes they have. It was like $30,000 a year was the average.
Yeah, I have heard you say that. Yeah, that's why I did wonder that. And
there's a lot going on with pilots right now. A lot going on with pilots. In fact, so much so that I've talked about the fact that I'm just not flying anymore. I don't trust that industry right now. We've had way too many close calls. It's almost every week. There was a big one on the news last night. 11 people went to the hospital because of turbulence. People were being carried off the plane on stretchers with neck braces because they flew up and hit their head on the luggage compartment so hard.
And you're saying it's because I thought I heard you mention it. Is it more a concern about the equipment?
It's everything. It's everything about that industry. I believe they're all cutting corners. They're short on pilots. The vaccine mandate for all the pilots has caused an awful lot of new heart attacks and strokes among pilots. We've had pilots dying in the seat since the vaccine came out. Now I read just this morning, good timing again, the FAA is now claiming that they have proof that there are at least 5,000 pilots who are flying. They've lied about their medical conditions.
Oh, I heard something about that too. Yeah, you mean to get through?
To get qualified. It would be like,
get qualified, yeah.
It would be like a driver trying to hide the fact that he was diabetic so he, doesn't have to get a 3-year or a 3-month or a 6-month card. That pilots are hiding their medical conditions in order to stay certified. And the FAA says they've identified 5,000 pilots who have done it. Why aren't those 5,000 pilots immediately suspended until this is figured out? I'll tell you why. Because they're already short on pilots. They can't.
Wow. Yeah, I hope my son stop using the commercial creamer and start making more steaks. But,
I know. I get it.
I hope he does. But I know. And then I update, or just in case
I just thought of something.
Where you were wondering.
I just thought of something. We kind of excuse drivers for being so unhealthy and obese and not fit, and we blame it on the lifestyle, the job of sitting all the time. Why don't we have 400-pound pilots? Isn't their job almost exactly the same? They sit all the time.
Yeah, right. Maybe they go home and they have enough time to be. I don't know. What's the standard time? I don't know.
I don't know either. It'd be interesting for somebody to compare those two occupations and why are they so wildly different in their health outcomes.
That is interesting.
I had never thought about that till just now.
And chicken, spatchcock chicken on the green egg comes out with crispier skin than a rotisserie chicken over plains.
Oh,
just FYI.
Absolutely. So for people who don't know what spatchcock means, it's a way to cook a chicken better when you're going to cook a whole chicken. Problem with trying to cook a whole chicken or a whole turkey is you get very uneven heat distribution. The outside cooks fast, the wings and the small parts cook too fast, and then they overcook. The breast doesn't get done, and if you do get the breast done, then everything else is overcooked. When we spatchcock a chicken, we cut through half of the carcass and open the chicken up so it lays down flat when we cook it. And it gives you a more even cooking surface so things cook at the same time. What that allows you to do on the green egg is crank the temperature up to get the skin nice and crispy without overcooking everything.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah, because even though it was rotisserie, yeah, maybe it created a lot of moisture too from the cavity.
I mean,
maybe that softened it too.
Well, and think about
Yeah.
this. When you put a whole chicken on, say, a grill or even an oven, most ovens only heat from the bottom. When you put it on there, look at part of your chicken is 4 inches away from the grill, and the top of the breast are 12 inches away from the grill, the heat. It's very uneven cooking on something like that. And then a turkey's even worse. No wonder why most people can't cook a good turkey. It's hard.
Yeah, that's why I thought rotisserie was going to be even as it goes around,
Right.
and but it still didn't crisp up. It's like the egg.
Well, again, think about
it still didn't.
the smaller parts, the wing out there right up near that heat. Oh, the whole time it's on the rotisserie, the wing's going to get way overcooked. The breast especially. Here's another problem.
Yeah.
Our Franken chickens these days, or Dolly Parton chickens, have monster breasts. And that's the problem with trying to cook a chicken. It's the breast that always, messes you up. It gets dry because it's so lean. There's no fat in there. One of the ways that helps a little is cook your chickens upside down. And then the fat from the rest of the chicken at least kind of works its way through the breast and tends to moisturize it a little bit. When you start cooking heritage breed, chickens that are pasture raised, they don't have giant breast compared to the rest of the chicken. They're much easier to cook. And they tend to have a lot more fat on them, so they cook better anyway.
Yeah. Hey, how about peppers? Have you the jalapeno? I mean, the habaneros. There's green and there's yellow and orange, right?
Well,
Have you tasted the green?
Let me tell you how this works. Almost every pepper. There might be some exceptions. I can't think of any right now. Almost every pepper will be green as it's growing, and I don't know if any stay. There are some that stay green. Most, though, actually will mature to a different color if you just leave them on the plant. Jalapenos turn red. You can pick them green,
right,
or you can let them go to red.
Yeah, I got some red ones.
They'll go to red, and the flavor changes completely. Some jalapenos, some of the varieties are brown. I've seen dark purple. I've seen almost black. But they all start green, and you can pick them all green, or you can let them go to yellow or orange or red or purple or whatever color that variety is going to be. Habaneros are the same way. I've got several habanero plants out there right now. Most of the peppers on them are still green. They're just now starting to ripen to pure orange. This is an orange habanero.
So I didn't buy. So I basically bought unripe habaneros on the green ones.
Yes, that's all they are. They're unripe. They're unripe peppers.
Oh, I wonder what they're going to taste like.
Have you ever?
Honey. I put them in the honey.
Have you tasted the difference between a green jalapeno and a red jalapeno?
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's more vegetable.
Yeah, that's
veggie
it.
type.
I actually describe that as a green taste. It tastes green. It tastes like green stuff, like you said, like green veggies. And then when it goes to red, it starts to get deeper and sweeter usually. And it can even get hotter. But it gets a little more depth of flavor then, and it loses that kind of green taste. The same thing with habaneros. These habaneros are going to have that kind of green taste to them. It's a little harder to identify in a habanero, though, because of all the heat.
Yikes. Yeah, okay. I bought yellow, too, and I bought some orange. And I might have mixed them all up. I don't know. Just experimenting.
Those 3 peppers could have come off the exact same plant. They were just picked at different times.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, I did get red habaneros. I mean, jalapenos. Found them at a farmer's market.
During the season, when all my peppers are green, all of them, if I need a pepper, I just go out and grab one. If I want a habanero, I grab it green. It's a little different, but it's it's not that different.
Yeah. All right.
Same thing with sauce.
All right, Kevin.
I have a hot sauce I made out of pure green jalapenos. And then I have a hot sauce I made out of pure red jalapenos. They are nothing alike. That green sauce has that bright kind of green, almost citrusy kind of flavor sometimes.
I make a real vinegary sauce, and it's very, it's nice, and use it for barbecue. I was trying to incorporate the honey to make it, I use it as my sweetener. But what if I wanted it a little thicker? What would you add arrowroot to it? Or would you?
I don't like to add thickeners to my hot sauces. I think they get funky when you do that.
This is barbecue sauce.
Oh, well, same thing with the barbecue.
Yeah, okay.
I will say all my sauces,
Okay.
every sauce I make that comes out of the garden, whether it's a tomato-based hot sauce, whether it's a tomato-based, meat sauce like a spaghetti sauce, whether it's a pepper-based hot sauce, whether it's a barbecue sauce, never add thickeners to those, ever. All I do if I want a thicker product, I just reduce them more.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the ketchup probably got cooked out maybe, and I canned it too, so maybe it got a little thinner. I tried
when you can sauces, they get thinner.
Yeah. Okay. And then I tried blending the mash, the pepper mash, out of the honey, and it turned it almost into a Mexican barbecue sauce.
I'll bet.
It did change it. It did change it, but yeah.
Yeah, when you start doing the honey and the peppers, and you get some crazy stuff that I've never tasted before.
Yeah, it was definitely a Mexican barbecue sauce.
Well, there you go.
But, yeah. All right, let someone else get in.
All right, thanks for the call. Let's go to Texas. Andrew, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. I called last year and then a couple of weeks ago. Last April last year, I had what my doctor called my first heart attack. And I talked to you, I think, last week. I went to my doctor's yesterday, 4 of them. And I basically said that by the first of the year, I want to be off all my medications. And you would have thought I was talking to puppy dogs. When a puppy is real curious, he turns his head sideways and looks at you.
Yeah.
They were like, I was shorting them out. They were like, what?
It's funny. I got these pictures of 4 doctors with their head tilted to decide, like, who's this alien?
Yeah. We thought we were going to give you more prescriptions. You thought wrong. No, we're not doing more. Now, one thing he did tell me, my female doctor told me to do, was she was concerned, my A1C, 1st of February, I had my toe removed because of an infection. And I was on basically about 4 months total, 3.5 of IV antibiotics. Completely blew my system. And not to be gross or weird about it, I am just now pooping correctly.
I'm sure. I know.
And now I've got a case of athlete's foot that I've got to take care of.
So, Andrew,
they said that it's because of the mob. Yes, sir.
I haven't heard something yet that I'm really hoping to hear. Because what I'm hearing from you is telling me that you know better than your doctors, and I believe you. That's not what I'm talking about here. You do know better than your doctors.
Right.
Why are you still working with these 4 doctors? Because nothing is going to change. You can stand there and tell them all day long, I want you to get me off this medication. They don't know how to get you off that medication.
One, the VA's paying for it. So it's free.
No,
and I just
Andrew,
part of me is
honestly that might be the worst answer I've ever heard.
No, it's a funny. Actually, it's a funny thing. Mostly, my little sarcastic self is just kind of messing with them.
Okay.
I'm just liking. Okay, so that.
What I was hearing was that you were kind of hoping they would, and I get it now. But what I was hearing is, I'm going to tell them how to do this, and then they're going to do it. That's never, ever going to happen. And asking them to get you off medications won't happen because they don't know how.
No, they don't. And I know that going in, and I knew that going in. So I got my blood work, and both of the doctors, the 2 main doctors I talked to, my cardiologist and my first time I've seen a primary doctor, they changed doctors on me. Anyway, the primary doctor did not like my cholesterol level. I know, don't pay attention to it.
Right,
you said that.
Of course he didn't.
Yeah. Now, my cardiologist, surprisingly, didn't have a problem with my cholesterol.
So what was your?
Kind of weird.
So let me ask you this: Based on where you are
Okay.
with losing toes over in infections, heart attacks,
Mm-hmm.
what is your cardiologist concerned about? If he's not concerned about your cholesterol, what is he concerned about?
Well, I've gotten 2 stents put in, one last year,
Of
one
course,
this year.
because
both
that's
in
all they
April.
do. But that's
And-
wrong. You should
Yeah,
have never
they-
gotten the stents.
I know that now.
But you're
Here
still
is
working
my
with these
concern.
doctors.
Well, this is my concern. They put the stents in. I can't, as far as I know, I can't get them taken back out.
No, but you can stop
Now,
doing
here-
what they recommend.
That's one of my concerns and I've listened to other doctors on the like Dr. Ken talking about it and some other ones. My concern is because of the damn stents. If I stop the blood thinner they've got me on, not will my arteries clog back up.
Well, stop.
but-
Hold on a second. Blood thinners have nothing to do with your arteries clogging. Nothing. All they're doing
clogging
is
up the stent.
no. Hold on. You're missing a key piece here. The blood thinner is not designed to stop clogging. The clogging already exists. They have to give you the blood thinner to get the blood through the smaller opening. It does not solve the problem of clotting or thickening or arteries closing up.
that's
That's
where I was
not
going
what
with
it's
that.
for. It doesn't do that. It's never going to do that. It's a Band-Aid because you have clogged arteries to thin your blood. So here's the thing. As long as you keep working with conventional doctors, you're only going to get conventional advice. And what they're telling you is wrong. You need to go to a functional
Right.
cardiologist. I am not telling you to stop your blood thinner. I'm not telling you anything to
No.
do for your medical condition other than go consult with the right people, or what you've experienced your whole life is just going to continue. You
Exactly.
can't work
I did
in
take-
the conventional system and think they're going to be functional just because you're asking them to.
And I understand that absolutely completely. Mostly I'm going for my blood work because, they do the blood work.
So
and I
then-
want to monitor a few things like my vitamin D levels, my potassium,
Okay.
my magnesium
I-
levels.
I get
which
that.
was on there.
Good. Now you've got
And,
the information.
my-
Hold on a second. If you're doing it, I'm just taking what you're telling me. You're doing this to get the data, and it's paid for. Excellent. We can use that data. They're not doing the right test. We could ask them to do other tests, and they may or they may not, and the VA may pay for it, and they may not. They probably won't. They probably won't pay for the tests we really need to see. The kind of stuff you're going to get when you go to somebody like Dr. Wolfson. You are going to get entirely
Yes.
different panels. But if you want to do this to get the data they can provide at no cost, great. My next question, though, is whose advice are you going to take about how to get better?
Yours.
Well, not even mine.
Yours
You need
and then the
more
people,
than mine. You need a medical
right, and the people
professional.
that you're recommending.
Right. Yes, that's the correct answer.
Right. Interesting enough, I did take my bottle of Cardio Magic, that was his name.
Cardio Miracle.
I got it
yeah.
from you, the Cardio Miracle. Thank you. I did take that canister into my cardiologist, and he looked at it, and he actually made a copy of it. Made a copy of the label, and he goes, "There's nothing in here that's going to hurt you. If you want to drink it, go ahead." He says, "It probably tastes bad, though." That was his words. I said, "Would you like to taste it?" He goes, "Yeah, why not?" And then his PA was in there with him. So both of them tried. I gave them a scoop right out of my jug, and they mixed it up and they drank. He said, "That tastes really good." And so the cardio people might have a couple more customers off of it. I'm not sure.
So kudos to your cardiologist for at least being open-minded. My response to him when he looked at it and said, "Yeah, well, there's nothing in here that would hurt you," I would say, "Can you say that about any of the pharmaceuticals you keep giving me?"
Yeah.
The answer is
It sounds
100% no. He can't tell you that there's nothing in a pharmaceutical that won't hurt you, because every pharmaceutical drug contains something that is hurting you.
Exactly. And the whole thing about the COVID, vaccine, yeah, I think what I've been hearing is you talk and other people talk about it is increased heart problems, increased infections, and a couple other things. Bing, 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 I've
Increase
got
in
all those.
turbo cancers,
And-
we're calling them.
Yeah, and now I don't have to worry about. Anyway, so I got the first round and the booster the first round. Surprisingly enough, my VA doctor, when I did ask her last year, I asked her this year, what about the boosters? Are they recommending the boosters? Not that I was going to take them, but I didn't tell her this. She's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Surprisingly, that's what the VA doctors told me. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. I wasn't suspecting that. I thought they were absolutely you got to have them, but they were. I was surprised. They said no. Going to Tuesday's show, you had a person call in about he started working in the quarries and having filter issues.
Oh, yeah.
On his truck. Okay. I work in dirt. That's what I work in construction. I'm hauling dirt right now in the belly dump. And so every day I blow out my filters, my air filters.
Okay.
And every day I've got an air chuck mounted in the truck coming off of the secondary tank. And I use that to blow out the air filter, and I use that to blow out all the pulleys and everything else in my truck.
Are you oil sampling?
During COVID, no. I don't own the truck.
I have a concern here. It's easy to tear a filter and not realize it using compressed air to blow it out. And if you're not oil sampling and you don't catch that tear, you could wipe out an engine.
This is not my truck.
I understand that, but that doesn't mean I don't want to educate people on that's not a great practice if you're not oil sampling.
Right. Yeah, I understand that, and I'm going to suggest it to him. Right now, I'm a rookie. I got my license back last October, and I'm just going through the motions, learning right now. And so I'm just doing what the boss tells me to do. We had two things on this. We had an interesting conversation between two managers telling me how to blow the filter out. One of them says only blow the outside of the filter off and put it back in. The other one says, no, you got to put the nozzle inside the filter and blow the dirt out to the outside of the filter.
Okay.
Blow it out.
When you are having...
Is there a proper way of doing that?
Hold on. When you are having this conversation and one person says you should do it this way and another person says you should do it this way, or even if there's only one and they're telling you how you should do something, what's my favorite question?
Why?
Did you ask either one of them why they have that opinion?
That's the way we've always done it.
So I don't want to take either one of their...
That was the typical answer I get.
So, okay, now you're asking a third party, and I'll tell you, don't blow out the filter. I think it's a bad practice.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute. Why didn't you ask me why? Make me prove myself.
I trust you.
No, don't trust me. I don't want people to trust me. I want people to question me and challenge me so I don't get lazy.
Okay, why?
Because there is a chance you're going to tear that filter somewhere, especially if you're sticking nozzles down inside where you can't even see what's happening. Air pressure can do a lot of damage to things. And you could tear that filter, nobody's sampling, you're in a really dirty environment, and for blowing out a paper filter, we could lose a $40,000 engine. That's why.
Okay, I will bring that I will bring up to the boss.
For blowing out a filter without sampling. If somebody, I just don't like blowing out filters. If somebody wants to do it and they think they're good enough at it and they're not doing any damage, I would want to see the samples to know for sure. I'm not risking a $40,000 engine over a tear in a filter somewhere.
I will address that with the owner. I'm going to sit down with him tomorrow. And I'm going to write that down and bring that up to him and just to see if he's open to it or not. Now, going back to Tuesday's call, and one of the things that one of your guests was talking about was what's all that dust and everything doing to the human body. And that right as COVID was starting, I had 10 different sources of income, mostly gig. I did rideshare. I did package delivery. I did a bunch of different things. And every one of those companies, when COVID all started, sent me boxes of those stupid face masks. And I still got them. I carry them now with me when I go into the quarries and I'm messing around with this truck. Now, I think they work for that purpose.
They do, no doubt.
And because
here's
my
why.
nose is cleaner.
Yeah,
when I blow my nose, it's cleaner.
Here's why they work.
That's how I know.
We don't care if some dust gets past. It's going to. When you're talking about a virus, though, if any virus gets past, the mask has failed. In dust, that's not the case.
Right.
We just want to cut down the amount. We don't need to get it to zero. It's just like using a mask in a paint booth or any of those things. We use respirators. We don't care if there's a little leakage here and there. We'd rather not have that. But that's a whole different issue than talking about contagious viruses and bacteria. I got to get to some calls here. In fact, we're not going to get to them all. So Mark and Paul, I know both of you guys can join me on the space, so I'm not going to go to your calls, just so you know. We're going to go to Harvey, and I'll get to Bob, and then we'll wrap this up. Harvey, what can I help you with?
Yes, sir. I got a little blood pressure problem, I think. When I take it with my new blood pressure machine, it'd be like 142 over 78 at 68 beats a minute.
Okay.
And it sounds like I'm getting if it was a hydraulic pump, you would be doing good. You know, the more pressure you get out of a squeeze, the better. But it doesn't sound like that's your heart's.
No, here's why. Your arteries start off nice and clean, and that tells us what normal blood pressure should be. As blood pressure goes up, it's not because the heart is pumping stronger, like you're thinking of in a hydraulic system. It's because the pipes are getting smaller. So
how come it goes down after I walk 2 or 3 miles?
Because exercise releases endorphins and other chemicals, and those chemicals relax your arteries and your veins so that they open up a little bit more. They're not all tight and constricted. They relax and open up, and that's the same reason we take Cardio Miracle. The exercise increases nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is what relaxes the arteries and the veins so that the pressure goes down. Cardio Miracle is a bunch of nutrients that help the body produce nitric oxide.
Huh. All right. Well, it didn't make much sense, but it's not hydraulic pressure either. So.
Nope. Sometimes we have to be careful comparing the human body to machines, even though the analogy seems good. This is how we got so screwed up with calories in, calories out. Because in a machine, there is a measurement you can use to know how efficient that machine is. How much of the energy we put into the machine is converted to motion, because that's what we're using the energy for. That works in a machine. It's consistent. The human body does not use energy in the same way. It has multiple sources of energy. It will use energy different depending on hormone balances. And so the idea to think that we could take this measurement from a machine and apply it to the human body was a horrible mistake, and is why so many people are obese today and still don't understand how to lose weight.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How about, right quick, HRV?
Single most...
My average is 38.
It is the single most important metric we can look at and measure ourselves easily now today to know how healthy and fit we really are. I think it's one of the most important metric we have. And here's what you want it to be. You always want it to be higher. I don't care where you are. If you want to be healthier, you want that HRV to get higher. And I will tell you, 30 is not good. I've been in the 30s many times. I was just there
38.
a couple of weeks ago. I'm climbing back out of that hole now because that's just not a good place to be.
So a few days I've seen it, like 2 days it was 50, and one day it was even 51.
Let me tell you one thing that can
38.
affect it really quickly. And you can test this yourself. I encourage everybody to test it. On one night, And I'm assuming we're going to go to bed at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock kind of thing. I'm not taking into account truck driver schedules. So adjust if you need to. I'm going to use some times, but what I'm really talking about is the distance of time between your last meal and when you go to sleep. So I'm going to say if you go to sleep at 9, 10, 11 o'clock, one night, do not eat anything after 6. The next night, eat right up until, snack or eat or whatever, right up until the time you go to bed. Watch the difference in your HRV. It will tank when you start eating that close to bed.
That's a fact. I have noticed that.
Yep. Every time.
So I try to quit eating
really
about
consistent.
2 o'clock in the afternoon and
Excellent.
not eat till 8 in the morning.
Excellent. Now, so if that's what you're doing and your HRV is average in the 30s, the way that you get that HRV up, you want to know how to get it up, and you'll start seeing a difference in less than 7 days.
Okay.
Do all the things I talk about on the stress protocol, or do any of the things. If you do them all, it will go up fast. The cold exposure, the infrared sauna and heat exposure, the Wim Hof breathing, and the resistance training. Do those 4 things, and your HRV will start to climb, and it will continue to climb as long as you keep doing those things. Now, at some point, you get up into the 80s, say, and you're going to notice a huge difference when you can get your HRV to the 80s. You are a new person. At that point, the protocol will probably stop really increasing it much, and you're going to have to go do more then. Probably more resistance exercise, some cardio in there even, and then you'll continue to see it go. But boy, if we could get to the 80s, that's a pretty damn good place to be. One final call, and then I'm going to turn this over to the Becketts. Bob, what's on your mind today?
I was calling about, you had a question about airplane pilots compared to over-the-road truck drivers.
Yeah.
And I called that, and you said what would be the difference. The difference, I'm an owner-operator, been driving 32 years. I'm 52 years old. I weigh 170 pounds. I'm 5'10". And health, I don't know where you stand with health and everything, but the comparison between an airplane pilot and a truck driver, we sit is I run a team run with my wife. I haven't walked the length of an airport in probably years.
Yeah, but here's
unless airplane pilots are sleeping on their airplane.
Well, some have long flights. You've got crews. I mean, overseas flights can get really, really long. And it's not like we're swapping out plane crews many times. You know who I need to get to weigh in on this for me is Mike Thompson. Mike Thompson's a pilot and an owner-operator, a commercial pilot for years and years, an owner-operator now. He would have good insight on this. So, Mike, call me or join me on the space today. But let me say this. Clearly, walking through the airports is more walking than a lot of truck drivers get. I get that. We also know that walking doesn't really fix obesity. Exercise doesn't really have a big impact on weight. Everybody thinks it does. It really doesn't. So I could see why they might be slightly healthier because of the extra walking, but I can't see how just that walking through the airport makes that big of a difference. I can promise you it doesn't. There's something else here. There's something we're not thinking of yet.
I believe that people were conditioned by the society to eat 3 meals a day, which I do not do. I've never done. I don't gorge myself 3 times a day. I probably eat 5 times a day, but very small meals, which keeps my metabolism going.
Now that's a myth, and that's not a great idea. And I get it. It works for you. You're going to say, but look at me, I'm thin and healthy. I can tell you that's not the healthy way to eat. That's not the way humans ate. Humans ate big meals when there was food available and then fasted in between. And those fasting periods were long, sometimes days. So I don't want to get too deep into this right now. And if it's working for you, keep doing it. But it is not a way of eating that I ever recommend. That eat little meals. Look, we don't want a fast metabolism. I know everybody thinks that because their problem is they're obese and they think a fast metabolism will fix that. Well, it won't. The more calories you burn up, the more food you'll go back and eat again when you're eating the wrong foods. And a fast metabolism just means you're going to die earlier. You had this whole idea of I want a really fast metabolism. not a great idea. All right, we're going to wrap this up. The Becketts will be back in about 5 minutes or less. Doesn't take us long to switch over. And then when they're finished, we'll head on over to X. So we will see you there. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.